there's a very strong recommendation coming from the crowd that they want to have these kind of discussions on a regular basis and have public access. So that is a clear message that's coming through. There's also been some questions about how to improve the share. It sounds like sharing information that KWS has. In particular, there's been some requests for finding, are there ways that the visitor comments, as they're consolidated, can be shared with interested parties so that they can address, they can help to improve the visitor situation. And there's also a specific request. I don't know if it's possible, but if the Nairobi National Park Experience Master Plan can be made available. So those are two specific comments. Questions? Does anyone at KWS want to respond to that?
Maybe I can start off, Doreen.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. We are improving the visitor experience in the sense of the feedback from our visitors, particularly in the park. This will be done. There's a new revenue management system that is coming on board probably within the next 2 or 4 months. What happens, what will happen within that system is that there will be a feedback on the visitation by the visitor to be able to say, this is what they saw, that was their experience, but they have certain comments on improving the services that they received during their visitation. That will be part of it. And we will be able to get back to them. We'll be able to engage with them. We'll be able to make the changes necessary to be able to improve the experience of the visitor. Maybe I can ask Professor Charles Musyoki maybe to add on 1 or 2 comments on that.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I will comment on the request for information about visitor feedback. Yes, this information is available, it can be shared. The only thing that needs to happen is that it can be requested. So we do visitor satisfaction evaluations every quarter, and we are able to actually tell what the visitors feel and what the visitors would like to see happening in the park. So that information is available on request. Now, the second thing is I want to clarify, because Doreen raised it again, is about whether the Nairobi National Park task force has been gazetted. I mentioned that this is an internal administrative arrangement within KWS to help develop an implementation tool for the Nairobi National Park Management Plan. So the task force is not gazetted, is an internal arrangement that was aimed at providing an avenue for developing programs that would then assist in the implementation of the Nairobi National Park Management Plan. So I think that is the answer that I would like to give insofar as that request is concerned. Are we involving the communities? Yes, we are. From the presentation made by Apollo Kariuki, it was quite evident that we have actually reached out to communities, particularly the communities that are neighboring Nairobi National Park. There are a lot of landowners that neighbor the park on the southern reaches. And for all these communities, we've been able to hold discussions with them, open-ended discussions on the proposals that they might have, to be incorporated in the management plan. The minutes of those meetings and workshops have been very well documented, as again was articulated by Apollo Kariuki. So we've reached out, but we would like to request if there are any participants in this webinar who may be aware of a community that we've not been able to reach out, to let us know, because we would like to be as inclusive as possible. We would want to include as diverse range of participants and stakeholders in this process as possible. So if there has been an oversight that you have detected on our part, insofar as reaching out to communities neighboring the park is concerned, please bring this to our attention so that we can move out and also make sure that the voices of those communities are also heard. Thank you.
Doreen, if I also add on as far as the communities, in the broader sense of engaging the communities, we also have the Kenya Wildlife Conservation Association, which brings together all these conservancies together. And the CEO, Mr. Dixon Kaelo, we are in constant contact with him. We were working together. And I think recently you saw the government had allocated something, I think in the tune of 1 billion. And this is a partnership between Kenya Wildlife Service and those conservancies. And I'm talking in the broader sense now, not just about Nairobi National Park alone. So the engagement with communities and conservancies is a constant. And as Professor Musyoki has just said, we have already been engaging the communities, particularly of the park. And we have actually had quite a few engagements. Before COVID came through, we actually had sit down. And I think Apollo had shown pictures, maybe didn't explain and expound what those pictures were of people sitting. Those were the engagements we had called in communities to come and sit down and discuss the issue of the management plan for Nairobi National Park. So this is and it has been ongoing. It's something that has been happening constantly. Thank you. Back to you, Doreen.
Thank you. Yes, it's very clear from the comments that lots of folks would like to see strong, continued and engagement with communities and direct engagement even after. So as the plan, again, I remind all of us, park management plans are meant to be living documents for all stakeholders to be able to partner and implement. So, and collaboration and participation is not something you do at a point in time and then say you're done. And so I think there's a strong desire to be part of that process. Doesn't mean we'll always agree, but to have more webinars like this and opportunities in person when COVID is over, to work through these issues as we go forward. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. He had a specific question in the Q&A that he wants to answer. Patrick? Do you know which question you said you want to answer?
I had been answering them online, Doreen, but I think one of the questions that I saw was that 50% of animals are residing outside the park currently. If we are aware, I think I've talked about technology. Nairobi Park acts as a dry season refuge for animals. And you see, when it is very dry and it's drought time, we even have a challenge of livestock incursions, big enforcement challenge. And that's why tracking and movement becomes a challenge. So we want to improve the quality of habitat. That's why we are introducing prescribed banning as part of habitat quality improvement. The improvements on the existing salt licks that have been there since the park was set up, and also the mowing, so that we have the lesser of migration going out, so that they stay in the park and we actively manage them until we actually understand the viability of these corridors and buffers to a level that now we can have them as part and parcel of the ecological extent of Nairobi National Park. Then there's another question that I think the DG has also answered very, very well. And the professor about the facilities. Any infrastructure facility in the park, and I saw Paola also asking that question. Management plan identify what will be done and where. And when you are supposed to do it, then we subject it to EIA. And that will be the case as per the MCA. Any activity, if it is infrastructure related, will subject it to EIA. So the plan prescribes where it will be done. And I think from the discussion that we've had, all the proposed infrastructure, particularly those involved in restaurants and visitor facilities, are improving on existing structures. It's improvements. We are not opening up the available range to this infrastructure. We are improving them to make them standard, to enhance the visitor experience. So, and where restoration is required, then we will do the restoration, not just as part of climate change mitigation, but also to improve the habitat status, as it were. Then the other question I saw Paola asking is, where do they walk in and out? I think KWS headquarters location is known, and Patrick Omondi is on the screen, and Charles is there, and the DG is there. But even if you don't walk in, if you have a clear concept on how we partner, let's say, for example, in mapping and establishing the viability of the dispersal areas of Nairobi Park, you develop a concept, just say it through an email, and we can work together and see the viability of what is supposed to be done. Maybe have some thoughts on how we can mechanically remove Parthenium, the invasive species. Just share your ideas. If it is the use of youth, or we can engage and start implementing that, because it's all identified in the management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And there are a number of comments coming in, including some proposed solutions for ways to engage youth and education programs. And there's definitely a strong call for partners who want to be engaged with KWS more on those aspects, moving forward with implementation of this plan. So I have a question for Edwin. Edwin, is it possible that we can open up voice for some of the folks in the audience? Or do
Yes.
I just have to? Okay, so what I'm gonna ask folks to do, I'm really, because there's not enough time to get through all these comments, but I would like to ask some folks, if there is something that we have not yet already discussed, and it is not something that you feel you could send language in by email, please raise your hand. And again, succinct, very clear interventions. And if you're highlighting, we really encourage you to highlight solutions on how to do things better on the way forward and how to improve on the existing plan and its implementation. So I'm going to look at if any hands are being raised.
I see Paola, I see Lucy.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna turn to Lucy first.
Okay.
Paola,
Lucy.
and then Noti. Lucy.
So I allowed to talk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doreen, and thank you, panelists, for the sharing that you have given us today. I have been listening to some of the community people who were, even though I appreciate that you indicated there were community and stakeholder consultations, it's also feasible that because the community there on the southern side is diverse and not all necessarily clustered in the regions that the meetings were held, there seems to be a very growing concern to engage especially the areas around Narotonoi. So my proposal to you is to still see how you can use the remaining weeks to have structured engagement with the groups that have shown interest. They are already part of the landowners where they have seen wildlife move back and forth over the years. And where there is willingness, which shows there is great viability of a possible solution. And I know they have a tour fact-finding mission tomorrow, Thursday. If KWS is able to send any of the people on the ground on that, that would be great. But if not, by the end of June, Let's see how we engage them. We may not have all the answers of what the type of engagement will be, but if we're able to document the willingness and the extent of the land that can be included, I think that would be a great win, even before this proposed time frame for input expires. This is what I wanted to propose. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Did anyone from KWS want to respond, or?
Yeah, maybe I can comment on that. I think it's an excellent intervention by Lucy Waruingi. And like I had said earlier, we are very open. The spirit of this consultation is that we would like to accommodate everyone who has a stake in this. And so we will again reevaluate our approach to the community engagement and the stakeholder engagement approach, and basically find out which communities we've not been able to reach out to and speak to them. Because we would like, particularly the community she's mentioned, Naretonoi Conservancy. I know we have been there, but probably we did not reach everyone who is there. So we will make an effort to reach out to them, involve them, and make sure that we are able to obtain their inputs into this management plan. I also want to comment on the involvement of the youth and what part they can play in this. I think youth can be a very strong advocate for conservation. It's a very broad segment of our society. It's a segment that is energetic. It's a segment that has a lot of good ideas. And youth in this plan have a very big role, particularly in conservation outreach. Speaking, spreading the gospel of conservation, carrying out awareness amongst people, and generally drumming up support for conservation of Nairobi National Park and maintenance of this ecosystem in as pristine conditions as possible. So the voice of the youth in this planning process is very critical. And we are welcoming all the youth to submit any suggestions they may have on how best we can handle the issues related to the management of Nairobi National Park. And we also urge them to become good ambassadors of this national park and the values for which the park stands. So we have a role for the youth, and we will continue encouraging the youth to become very key partners in the management and planning for Nairobi National Park. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so, Lucy, anything, I hear very clearly a desire to both help KWS identify communities that feel that perhaps they have been missed or have been missed. And I think, Lucy, you were offering to help identify that. I would like to caution everyone, June 30th is not that far away. And I think it will be challenging to accommodate everyone. These are complex, conflictual issues. So I think instead of seeing the June 30th deadline as the ultimate D-Day, think about what is that community engagement process to both inform this living document and then how to keep it moving forward using virtual. And then once we get out of this crisis, going beyond virtual, because that does not work for many communities. But I also think it's important to manage expectations about who can be reached and how, and prioritizing those. So I'm sure KWS, I've heard them say very clearly, welcome suggestions on that. I'm going to go to Paula, who has her hand raised. Paula.
Thanks, Doreen, and thanks to all the panelists as well. I think it's fantastic that we're having this public conversation, which I think has helped a lot of people. I don't know how many people are on this call because there wasn't that much time for advertising. I think, we tried as much as possible to share.
164 right now.
Fantastic, that's awesome. Nairobi National Park is such an important showcase in Kenya. It's not just any old park. And so whatever we do in terms of the planning process has to be the best we can possibly do, because it really is the example for all the other protected areas in Kenya. And it's not only that, it's an example for the world. Nairobi National Park is, you fly over it when you land in Africa for the first time. So this is my request to Brigadier Mr. Waweru, to Charles Omondi and Apollo. I think we have raised a lot of concerns. I know that many of them have been addressed, and we felt for the longest time that KWS was not listening to us, and I think you know that. And it's not only some of us in civil society, some of us who are experts, former KWS, so we know how things have been done in the past, but even the community, we've been hearing a lot of concerns which Lucy raised, and I hope that her recommendation can be taken up. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have organized together as the Conservation Alliance of Kenya with the East African Wildlife Society, Nature Kenya, the Kenya Tourism Federation, the Wildlife Foundation, and the Naretanoi Conservancy. We've organized for a public participant meeting, which is very different from this. It's not a webinar. It's a meeting where people who are very passionate about the park will participate in 4 hours of conversations that will translate into recommendations from those people. It is a different way of meeting. It is actually a mechanism that may bring out new ideas, because in that group you have educators, you have scientists, you have students, you have tourism entities, you have the community. And when these conversations between people from these different sectors take place, we can actually come up with new solutions to some of the problems. I know that what was raised earlier, human-wildlife conflict, poaching, pollution, all these problems have solutions, but it cannot be KWS on their own. This park is in crisis. We all know this. You just have to look at the amount of Parthenium to see that there is a major problem. It can't be solved by an individual. We need to get all hands on deck. So I'm going to request, based on the goodwill that we've heard from all the speakers today, that KWS actively engage in this process. The absence of KWS until now is very, very suggestive. And a lot of people are asking, why is KWS ignoring the public? Director General, please, can we have KWS support this initiative? We have all put a lot of money and effort and time to bring together the Kenyan public. And you know, you've said you want the public to engage. Charles just said we want everybody's views. I'm making a request to you, pleading with you. Please, can KWS engage in this process, encourage your staff, your stakeholders to participate in this event this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. There's a request, a specific request to KWS, how it will engage with this process that will be going on later in the week. Is there any idea of what the I know KWS has said they will consider the outputs of that meeting, but I don't know if there's any opportunity to engage directly in that meeting or those series of meetings.
Yes, Doreen, if I could make a comment.
Please.
First and foremost, thank you very much for the comments from the various participants. And I would also like to address what Paula has just talked about. I get the feeling that sometimes we think KWS just wants to do its own thing, cut everybody else out. That's not the purpose of the exercise here at all. There's a reason why we did this webinar. We've done it so that we can involve the public and have an it's not just saying what we're going to do and that's it, nobody else is involved. We are concerned about making sure that the park remains pristine and is able to work, or rather to be able to attract new visitors in such a way, and more visitors in such a way that we can maintain that park as is and even make it better. That's our purpose. It's not to shut anybody out. It's not to tell people that it's just KWS's view and nobody else's. And that activity, the event that is going to take place, I believe from tomorrow up to Saturday, 3 days, I think, if I'm right from what Paula said. Yes, we will be involved, okay? We will be involved as KWS because we're concerned also about that. The only thing is, I hope we'll be able to keep within the law with regard to public meetings. And that is would have been my concern. But that we want to get involved, absolutely. There is no reason for us to stay away. And this is the reason why we've invited you to this webinar so that you can also see that we are concerned, just like you are, the community, to keep Nairobi National Park pristine and a park that will be there for the future of our children, grandchildren, and future generations as we go forward. So yes, we will have our community, wildlife community department, and people will be there for that meeting so that they can also hear what the communities are saying about what they would like to see done. Okay, remember, we can accommodate most things, but in any plan,
Exactly.
everything. I think we must agree, and you can't have everything, otherwise there will be no plan. That's the way I see it. But yes, we will involve most of what they give us, what they contribute to us, so that then we can then be able to do a plan that is acceptable to most of the people and that is workable. And I think the operative word here is workable plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So there you go, Paula. There's some follow-up to figure out how the community folks at KWS will engage in your virtual dialogues at the end of the week. I'm going to turn to, so that's a second follow-up. If you note, if you speak, I'm giving you actions to do. So when you raise your hand, be prepared to take action and implement.
Doreen,
I'm going to, yeah.
Allow me to just make 2 comments on Paula's
Please do.
remarks. One is I appreciate that she's actually acknowledged that KWS has addressed most of the concerns that have been raised by stakeholders and communities. And it's good to get that endorsement. And just, of course, echo what my boss has said, that we are willing to listen and we are willing to accommodate any good ideas that come on board that seek to ensure that this park, being the very first in the country to be established, is maintained in as good conditions as possible. Now, the other thing is about Parthenium, invasive species. We are concerned as much as everybody else is about invasive species, not just Parthenium, but there is a diversity of invasive species that are really ravaging our protected areas. And for that reason, we've been able to come up with a very ambitious invasive species eradication program. And for Nairobi in particular, in the last few weeks, we've actually been involved in a very active program to remove particularly Parthenium. And we are very optimistic if we sustain this, we'll be able to rid this park of Parthenium and all other invasive species that are in this protected area. So we are very keen and we are very concerned as a service that invasive species have the potential to overrun the indigenous species. And therefore, we are making every effort by even involving partners and stakeholders to not only control, but also eradicate invasive species from our protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you. That addresses a number of comments in both the Q&A and chats about invasive species. I do see a couple of streams as well in the chats and comments about concerns about how does KWS know the carrying capacity for the park, both for its wildlife, but also for its tourists. There's a number of questions about that. And the evidence base and the science. Does anyone from KWS want to respond to those questions?
If I might take that.
Thank you.
Of the carrying capacity of animals. We have the carrying capacity for black rhinos. We know how many black rhinos Nairobi Park can have based on the available browse and biomass. And being a rhino sanctuary and a breeding sanctuary as such, Nairobi Park has acted as a donor to many rhino areas in the country and also to improve on genetics of various areas. The issue of carrying capacity when you still have migrations allowed, becomes difficult. When you have a closed system, for rhinos, we basically it's easy, and That is one of the studies we'll be embarking on as we look at the viability of buffers dispersal area. So yes, we can determine carrying capacity for buffaloes, for giraffes, for lions we have. And these are studies already that is prescribed in this management plan. In terms of number of visitors, I think Charles will address that, and it is easy, you know. You see, you can dictate the number of visitors in many ways, just like we have thousands of visitors visiting Rwanda, Akagera Park to see gorillas, but they are programmed on what timing, 1 hour, just like we know we have the Daphne Cedric Elephant Orphanage. We only have 1 hour. All those options are available for us, and we can easily determine through our records on how we control numbers, and those are good ideas. We can have that capacity as the park becomes visitor friendly. There's lots of visitor experience, more visitation, more thought process will be welcomed. But Doreen, I think there's one of the Q&A question I've seen from Paula, that we are rushing this plan. And I want to talk to that so that those in the webinar can listen. Apollo said we started this plan process in 2014. 2014 because the old one expired in 2010. And we know KWS have had so many transitions of leadership. There are certain leadership that prefer to work ad hoc. So we were told for some years, they don't want a plan. And it delayed for some time until now the current leadership feels we have to get this plan and work in a coordinated manner. A plan is a living document, and we cannot wait forever, you know, continue open-ended. Nobody stops new ideas, even if we conclude it by 30th. So it's not being rushed at all. This has been an ongoing process. I think Apollo spelled it out. And this is part of public participation and even the processes. And I think I've been talking to the leadership of Conservation Alliance of Kenya. You know, they have been having several meetings. There are coordinated partners in conservation. And we have a plan. We have generated a plan through a process that is plausible. And we are seeking inputs to this plan. And we said you have organized an open space access, collect as many improvements. The plan is there in public. It is in our website. We have incorporated up to the 26th. If there will be any additional information on the programs that we have prescribed in this plan, be it ecology, be it tourism, be it security, be it community relations. After the 3 days, the CAK leadership should just compile those things. And I talked to the head of planning, and they have a core team of writers. They will incorporate, will welcome proper wording, because you see some of the things being proposed, like viability of the proposed corridor. It's not something you study in 1 day, it's a process. The language will be there that will do that to see how viable it is and how can we secure it as part of the plan, so that it doesn't stop at that we have to do that study before we conclude the plan. So we need to have a distinction about plan and, and so that we conclude this process, we manage. And that's why you saw there was a use, what we do where in the plan, so that we are not caught black-footed when a new infrastructure, and we know that's where now engagement comes in. If you have a plan and the new infrastructure one comes in, we say it's not within our plan, and what can we do to do this? When infrastructure comes and a plan has expired, then we start just doing activism. It becomes so difficult to do these things. So I will really want to comment that we are supported. We really want input, technical input. We need engagement so that we conclude this process. There are so many other parks that we are formulating the management plan, Savo East, Savo West, Amboseli, the same planning process. Of course, Nairobi is unique so because it's the only park within a capital city. And we have taken cognizance of that. That is why we are prescribing the activities we are proposing. So, moderator, I think as we even go, the DG has allowed that our planning co-team can go and collect views. But let's collect views to improve. Let's see, filter. I think by now, if somebody was keenly interested in the plan, you should be knowing what is there. And you know, if you go to an open space meeting, you'll got all sorts of proposals. Some of them not plausible, but you have to listen. That's why it is open. And then if you are for the good, then filter them and then surrender to us. And I think I've talked to the leadership of CAK to help us on this so that we can move this process and conclude this process and embark on others. We have challenges in Nakuru with the rising water. We have massive development in Amboseli, outside Amboseli. So we want to also move ahead. So yes, we really welcome this 3-day open space meeting, but we already have a plan which we think we can start on. And I want to repeat, it is a living document. It can be really changed when change is felt, can make a difference, and we can continue engaging. Thank you.
Thank you. I just
can I comment on the numbers?
Please do.
Yeah, just to quickly mention that last year, 2019, the total number of visitors that came to Nairobi National Park was 200,000. Basically 208,000 visitors. So on average, that's about 550 visitors per day on average. So in terms of determining the carrying capacity, what would really guide us is a number that would impact on the park, facilities, and also the ecology of the park. And we know in recent days, if we go by the numbers that we've been receiving in the park in recent days, we have had in excess of 3,000 visitors a day in the recent past. You would expect, because we are going through this COVID-19 pandemic, that numbers in Nairobi National Park would be low, but that's actually the opposite. We've been receiving much higher number of visitors per day during this COVID period than we have in a normal year. So 3,000 visitors a day translates to about 1 million visitors in a year. So looking at the park and what we've seen in the last 3 months, we would probably cap the carrying capacity of visitors to just about 2 million visitors in a year. But of course, that will need to be managed in some way so that we do not then compromise on the facilities as well as the ecology of the park. The national park that receives the largest number of visitors globally is a Smoky Mountain Park in the US. It receives 9 million visitors in a year. So I think, although I run the risk of comparing an apple to an orange, I think for Nairobi Park, one of the major determinants of the visitor carrying capacity would be the infrastructure that we have in place, as well as the likely impact large numbers of visitors would have on the resource itself, the wildlife. And so any figure between 1 million and 2 million visitors in a year, managed in a manner that is going to stagger the visitors' entry, is something I think we can be able to accommodate. But we would need to do some bit of work so that we can come up with a finer figure of the carrying capacity of visitors for the park. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you know, I think it's important to remember, someone said this last week in our consultation, without a plan, things get left to chance. And it is very hard to have accountability if you don't have a plan. I've spent much of my life helping protected areas around the world develop plans. There is no such thing as a perfect plan. And so I think the goal is to get a plan. What I also encourage participants to do, to not just look at that first part of what needs to be done, but think about the monitoring, because a plan is only as good as its monitoring and adaptive management. So please look at those sections, and if you have ideas of how you can contribute to make sure that that monitoring is improved and done well, there's tons of partners on here who can contribute to that. So please also include that in your review and your comments. So I'm going to now give the floor to Kinoti Gituma, and I apologize if I said your name incorrectly, to make a comment. He's still there. Okay, I'm going to then jump, it seems like we're having a problem there, to Dr. Ben Okita, who's had his hand raised for a while. Edwin, anyone? Can anyone speak? There's 3 hands raised. Gituma, Okita, and then Moses Amonji.
Let me try and see Okita allowed to talk. He's allowed to talk.
Right, there you go. Dr. Okita.
Unmute your mic, please.
Oh, your mic is still muted.
Okay, maybe allow.
Okay. I'm there now.
Yes,
I'm there now.
Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Kinoti. I've just been unmuted.
Oh.
Can I
What do we
speak?
have? Okay, so now we have Kinoti Gituma, and then we will get to Dr. Okita.
Great. Thank you all, panelists and all attendees. Very informative. I was actually touched by Dr. Umandi's comment about use of geofencing. And then I had somebody mention about introducing apps to enhance visitor experience in visiting the facilities. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about new technologies that are being embraced as we move forward into new plans. Nairobi being the capital city, we see a lot of threats, a growing city, encroaching, whatever. So what technologies are we going to use to protect our animals? Dr. Umandis invited ideas on things, geofencing, etc. So I wanted to hear what technology is going to be instituted, and if the opportunity also to share some ideas on some of the technologies that can help us safeguard our wildlife. That was my question and comment. Thank you.
Ben.
Patrick, is that, it sounds like that one might be for you.
Maybe have them with Ben so that I can unmute all of them together.
Okay, Ben, okay. Ben, please go ahead and then we'll respond.
Thank you very much to the panelists, and we really appreciate this public webinar. It's very informative and very engaging, and I think it's the progressive way forward. I've already sent some comments in terms of seizing these opportunities for collaboration between the conservationists and the infrastructure developers, which I think we can do in a way that we can still develop, but at the same time, keep our natural heritage intact. Now, I have a specific question to I think, Apollo, the head of planning. And this is in line with the general planning when it comes to lands that are left as no man's lands, no man's here in quotes. Do you have plans for those lands? I have cases as examples like the Savos along the railway line, the lands that remain, which no longer probably belong to Kenya Wildlife Service. that you find probably people now encroaching them and settling in those lands. The other case is just along Nairobi National Park, the southern bypass next to Carnival. There's land there just between the southern bypass and the police headquarters, which originally was National Park's land. But currently there is an ongoing construction, which to me, I think just chokes the park more. So I just wanted to understand whether such lands are still within the jurisdiction of Kenya Wildlife Service to provide a planning guideline or development guideline along those lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I think so long as the area has not been degazetted, it is still part of the park, even that bit that you have talked about. So we manage it as part of the park as such. That is for Nairobi Park. That area that has been cut off by the southern bypass. As regards the Savo, I think of course you know that the railway and the roads have been gazetted as a national reserve. The railway and the road reserves are also protected. So basically, it's not that they are no man's land as such, but they are part of the protected area system. They are national reserve. So they are, in fact, they are under KWS. So there is no, what I would call no man's land there.
Doreen, can I comment on the technology aspect of
Please,
use?
please do.
Yeah, so in terms of, this is a question that was asked by Kinoti Gituma about what new technologies we are employing. And I want to mention 2 or 3 very creative approaches that we are giving to Nairobi National Park. The first one being Wi-Fi enabling. We are targeting initially the main facilities, you know, the picnic site, the eatery, the restaurant, you know, so that we enable these areas from a Wi-Fi point of view, so that when visitors are in there, then they have an opportunity to do a lot of things because these places will be covered by Wi-Fi. Eventually, as I think we implement within the 10 years, we will roll out this program so that the entire park is covered by Wi-Fi. Again, that will make the opportunities for interaction by visitors limitless because there are so many things that you can do when you have Wi-Fi. The second very creative intervention that we are going to have is the app for the park. Again, the app is going to help the visitor navigate the park, interact with the park management, interact with KWS, ask questions, be guided, be directed to where animals have been sighted in the day and so on. So there's going to be a very big transformation as a result of technology. The other area that we are targeting insofar as technology is concerned is the revenue and visitor management system. This is a system that we are going to completely overhaul. You will see for the first time visitors to Nairobi National Park, and this is also going to be rolled out to the other parks, will be able to make payments online. That is not the case today. You'll be able to go online, make your payment, arrive at the park, verification is done, and you're on your way to enjoy the park. So the visitor management and revenue management system is also going to take a lot of advantage from modern technology so that we are able then to make it very, very efficient in the management of visitors. We'll also be able to track visitors using technology. The issue of a visitor getting lost in the park, we'll be able to detect a visitor who is probably off track before they even call us for help and basically move in and assist the situation. We are also employing telemetry tracking for the animals. particularly the rhinos, the lions, we track them remotely. So that's another area where we are employing technology so that we are able to monitor and understand our animals in a better way. We're also going to embrace CCTV. As a vehicle is getting into the park, we will capture it on record and be able to monitor the movement of the vehicles within the park. And therefore, surveilling violations of park rules and regulations is also going to be made easy by the use of technology. In other words, as we embrace these new technologies and modern technologies, we are seeking to achieve two key objectives. One is enhancing visitor experience wildlife. And secondly, ensuring that we are able then to carry out our park operations in a better way. Thank you.
If you allow. Okay.
Please.
Doreen, let me say something first.
Oh, yes.
Patrick,
Yes,
I just want to underscore what Professor Musyoki just said. As far as technologies are concerned, he mentioned the issue of the fact that we're able to monitor animals and we're able to do fencing. I think that is what Timothy had asked about. This we are able to do a system that is already in place. We have the Earth Ranger system we are using for security purposes and operations. The Earth Ranger is able for us to be able to track not only the animals which have collars within the park, and we're not just talking about Nairobi National Park, we're talking about all the parks in the country where we have the Earth Ranger system so far. And we are also able to track our own rangers and vehicles to be able to see where they are, so that if at all there's a problem with our people, it's possible to see. So those are also new technologies that are being employed at Nairobi National Park and other parks. The other thing also that is in the process, and we should be rolling it out in the next financial year, is the use of drones as a force multiplier. Our teams being out patrolling, and particularly in the sensitive areas where we have rhino or we have elephants, we will be able to actually use such technologies, and this will be rolling out in the next financial year, to be able to use drones as force multipliers, because we'll be able to see further, a small group, but will be very effective because day and night we'll be able to use this such equipment. So yes, there's a lot happening as far as technology is concerned, and we are looking forward to improve our stakeholders as new technologies come in that will affect them and make the experience even better. Thank you.
Patrick?
I think the DG has said it all. The only, maybe Kinoti asked whether he can get engaged. He can reach out to us, and we have IT geniuses in Kenya. We are hoping finally that we'll have a innovation hub so that we can also deal with the emerging technologies. So he's welcome to bring his thoughts too, so that we can improve on what we are doing.
Thank you. So I think we're running out of time, but I think we have time for one more comment. And I think if it's possible, we'll let Moses, let me see, let's see if we can get 2 quick comments in. If you could please be succinct and pithy with your interventions. Moses Amonje and Collins Munene.
They should be good to go.
Yes, how are you guys? Yeah, my comments about...
Please go ahead, Moses.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my comment is about engaging the young people in environmental conservation. We have actually developed, the organization I work for, we've developed a plan that we've actually submitted to the Director General. The plan is about engaging the young people from a tender age, whereby we work with schools. And we've actually developed a concept where we are saying that wildlife conservation education using physical activity programs, whereby we've designed programs that are physical activity programs that are inspired by animal movements. So we've actually done the proposal, we've submitted to the Director General, and I believe if it's actually taken keenly, it will also address the issue of environmental conservation awareness by engaging the young people, the youth in it. And this is something that will be done actually countrywide. We have a detailed strategic plan, and I believe if you actually go through it and then we have further discussions in it, it's something that we can also be a part of the implementation strategy of the plan.
Thank you, Moses. A great example of the kinds of partnerships that we need to expand on for this park and for others. I think we may have lost Collins. I think we've lost Collins. I think that's okay. But I'm going to just do a quick wrap up and give the floor then to colleagues and friends at KWS. But first, I think, just looking at, I see Patrick is busy typing away, trying to respond to questions. I think the level of dialogue that we've seen, I know not everyone got to speak. We didn't get to everybody's questions and comments. Some were just comments to be noted. But I think it's just a sign of how much people care about this park, how much people do want to work together, even if we don't agree all the time. These are complex issues. There are no simple solutions. And dialogue is the way forward. We recognize not everyone could be in this dialogue. There's more happening later this week. And there's definitely more needed. That has been heard loud and clear. So a few takeaways that I take away. Lucy has agreed to help support we'll share some concrete ideas to engage some targeted communities, perhaps between now and the end of the month. KWS has agreed that they will participate and take into account the inputs that come from the sessions that are happening later this week, as well as any written comments that you all send in. And I encourage you to have concrete, very clear comments. They've already gotten a lot of comments, and we are down to the 4th draft, so we want to have a level of specificity in any additional comments to make it into this round of the living document. And please also that we will capture the text and look through the Q&A and all the wonderful suggestions that have come up and the issues that people have raised. There is a commitment to make sure that those messages that didn't get spoken about today get heard and considered as part of finalizing the draft, and then for consideration during implementation and rollout of implementation. So I want to thank all the participants for a very active dialogue. I want to thank colleagues from KWS for inviting me to moderate, and I will turn it over to, we didn't script this part, so I'm not sure who I'm turning it over to close the meeting, but someone will speak up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Doreen. Thank you so very much for looking after us and managing us and managing our time. By way of closing remarks, I'd like to say thank you very much to all the participants. We've really enjoyed your engagement, and we will look forward to having other engagements in future of the same. We feel that this is the best way, given the current COVID issue that we have, to engage with the communities and the general public with regard to the parks. So we're starting with Nairobi National Park. We'll be doing this for other parks as well as we roll out their management plans. I just would like to let the public know that last Friday, World Environment Day, was when the issue of no plastics in protected areas came into force. So going forward, please, and I really would like to request the general public, kindly do not bring plastics into Nairobi National Park or any other protected area, because this is becoming a big problem for us. I'd rather you get something that can contain either the water or the liquid you want to drink. I hope it will not be alcohol, because we don't want you driving along and drinking the alcohol as well, because that has its own problems. And we've seen them in the parks where even cars have rolled in areas that were just wide open, simply because the driver was probably imbibing something that they shouldn't have been. So please, we will be enforcing this. The other issue I would like to mention very quickly is the issue of how we conduct ourselves when we get into the park. The rules are very clear. Don't come out of your car in the park, please. Unless it's in a picnic area or other designated areas, please do not come out of your car, because we had very near misses in the last 2 weekends where a rhino almost gored a car, and we're following this up, and we will catch up with that culprit. He's not going to get away with it, because you know the rules as you walk in. Please don't do that. Don't go into the park and walk out. There are lions out there, okay? And these are not pets, these are wild animals. Clearly, if you walk out, you will have a rather nasty engagement with this animal. So please, if you can kindly do this, it will make our work very, very easy indeed. And we are there to look after you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this. Doreen, thank you very much for managing all of us. And thank you to my participants, the panelists, and all the participants. Thank you, and we will engage you again next time. Asante sana.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.